Moving on to algebra and solving one-step equations, we talk about inverse operations a lot. An inverse operation is the opposite operation to solve an equation. Think about it as your fact families. If I have 2 plus 3 equals 5, I can use the commutative property and flip-flop the 2 and the 3 and still make 5. Or I can use the opposite operation or the inverse operation to also solve this equation. So 5 minus 3 is 2 and 5 minus 2 is 3. So I can rewrite these in different forms to solve an equation. So let's go ahead and take out the 3 and we're going to put it with a variable. So let's go ahead and take out all my 3's. And we're going to use the variable. Let's go ahead and use the variable h. Now all my 3's have turned into an unknown, a variable h. So 2 plus what is 5 can be written as what plus 2 is 5, or 5 minus what is 2, or 5 minus 2 is h. Now, this is the one that I can actually use to solve for h. I know 5 minus 2, I can do this problem because these are both like terms, so I can do 5 minus 2, and 5 minus 2 is 3. So therefore, 3 is h. So I could take 2 plus an unknown, h, that equals 5. So there would be my beginning equation. And I can rewrite it using the inverse operation with subtraction and do 5 minus 2 is h, where h is then 3. So let's go ahead and practice with our 4 different operations. Now, some of these problems I can use mental math and know what the answer is. But eventually, these problems will involve fractions or decimals or a little bit more complex integers. Remember, those are our positive and negative numbers that require us to actually use the inverse operations and use our steps. So again, most of these we can do in our head, but we will get more difficult as time progresses. So we need to make sure we understand what actually is going on with simpler numbers. So if I look at m plus 7 equals 18, I know that the inverse operation of adding is subtraction. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to move my 7 over onto the other side and rewrite this as a subtraction problem. So m is 18 minus 7. Okay, that is my fact family. All right, now I have 2 terms that I know I can subtract because they're alike each other. So 18 minus 7 is 11. So m equals 11. So in order to solve my addition problem, I'm going to rewrite it as a subtraction problem, like a fact family, and solve for my equation. So now if I take 11 and replace the m with 11, 11 plus 7 is 18. And I want to make sure I do that mental math at the end, make sure to check and make sure my answer is correct and that I use the correct operation. Okay, so in example 2, I have a subtraction problem. So I can rewrite my fact family as an addition problem. So t now becomes 4 plus 9. Since 4 and 9 are like terms, I can add them. So t is 13. Again, I want to take 13 and replace it back into my original problem and make sure that I did everything right. 13 minus 9 is 4, so I know that is correct. All right, moving on to multiplication and division. 7p means I have 7 times some number, 7 groups of some number, and that is going to give me 42. So the inverse operation of multiplication is division. So I'm going to rewrite this as my fact family. So 7 times what is 42, and I'm going to rewrite it so my 2 terms are the same. So instead of multiplication, I'm going to do division. So 42 divided by 7. And I know that 42 divided by 7 is 6. So if I take my 6 and replace it back up here into my p, 7 6s are 42. So I know I did it correctly. Okay, going down here, remember fractions are a form of division. So I wrote this as looking like a fraction problem. So what divided by 4 is 3? So mental math says I know that 12 divided by 4 is 3. So how do I show that using my inverse operations? I show that by rewriting this with my fact family. So what number is 4 times 3? And I know that it is 12. So 12 divided by 4 gives me the 3. And let's go ahead and write this as my multiplication dot so we don't get confused with our x's as our variables. So again, a lot of times we can do mental math, but when we start doing this with fractions and decimals, we need to make sure we understand which inverse operation we need to use in order to solve our equation problems.